The Victorian era, a time of immense change and upheaval, spanned from 1837 to 1901. This period coincided with the reign of Queen Victoria, the longest ruling monarch in British history. During these years, Britain transformed from an agricultural society to an industrial powerhouse. The British Empire, vast and powerful, stretched across the globe. This era witnessed incredible advancements in science, technology, and medicine. Think Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution, or the groundbreaking work of Florence Nightingale in nursing. The Victorian era also saw the rise of new artistic movements like the Pre-Raphaelites, who challenged traditional styles. From the bustling streets of London to the remote corners of the empire, the Victorian era left its mark on the world. This period, often romanticized for its elegance and grandeur, was also a time of stark social contrasts, poverty and hardship. The Victorian era was a time of contradictions, progress and poverty, scientific advancement and religious fervor, rigid social structures and burgeoning social movements. It was a time of great change, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape our world today. The Victorian era, as you might have guessed, takes its name from Queen Victoria. Her reign, from 1837 to 1901, neatly bookends this fascinating period. Victoria ascended the throne at the tender age of 18, and her rule, remarkably long, saw Britain through a period of dramatic transformation. But why is this era so closely associated with its monarch? Well, Queen Victoria wasn't just a figurehead. She was a powerful symbol of her time, her personality and values, leaving an indelible mark on the era. Victoria's reign was marked by a strong sense of duty, morality, and family values. These values permeated British society, influencing everything from art and literature to social customs and even fashion. The Victorians, it's fair to say, were rather fond of rules and etiquette. This era, named for a queen, was about more than just a name. It was a reflection of a time, a society, and a way of life, all shaped, in part, by the woman on the throne. Victorian society was a complex and hierarchical structure. At the top sat the aristocracy, wielding immense power and influence. Below them, a burgeoning middle class emerged, fueled by the engine of the Industrial Revolution. Life for the working class was a stark contrast to the opulence of the upper classes. Many toiled in factories and mines, facing dangerous conditions and long hours. Child labor, sadly, was commonplace. Gender roles, too, were rigidly defined. Men occupied the public sphere, dominating politics, business, and the professions. Women, relegated to the domestic sphere, were expected to be wives and mothers, the moral guardians of the home. The Victorian era, however, also saw the seeds of change sown. Women's suffrage movements gained traction, challenging traditional gender roles. Social reformers fought against injustice, striving for a more equitable society. The Victorian era witnessed an unprecedented technological revolution. The steam engine, improved and harnessed for power, fueled factories and propelled trains, literally changing the landscape. The invention of the telegraph and later the telephone revolutionized communication, shrinking distances and connecting people like never before. Factories, once small-scale operations, transformed into massive enterprises. Mass production became the norm, churning out goods at an unprecedented rate. This, of course, led to a consumer boom, as new products flooded the market, tempting Victorians with their affordability and novelty. But this rapid industrialization came at a cost. Pollution choked cities, while the plight of the urban poor worsened. The gap between the rich and the poor grew wider, as the benefits of progress were unevenly distributed. The Victorian era, an age of innovation, was also an age of stark contrasts. It was a time of both progress and its discontents, a reminder that every technological leap comes with its own set of challenges. Section 5. A world conquered, empire and exploration. The Victorian era was the age of the British Empire. Driven by a potent mix of economic ambition, national pride, and a belief in their own cultural superiority, the British extended their reach across the globe. By the end of the 19th century, the British Empire, vast and sprawling, encompassed nearly a quarter of the world's landmass. Exploration, fueled by scientific curiosity and a thirst for adventure, captured the Victorian imagination. Intrepid explorers ventured into uncharted territories, mapping remote regions and discovering new species. Their tales, recounted in books and lectures, enthralled audiences back home, fueling a fascination with the exotic and the unknown. This expansion, however, came at a heavy price. The exploitation of colonial resources and the subjugation of native populations cast a dark shadow over this period of imperial grandeur. The Victorian belief in their own civilizing mission often blinded them to the human cost of their empire-building endeavors. The Victorian era, a time of global exploration and imperial expansion, left an indelible mark on the world. It was a time of both great achievement and great injustice, a complex legacy that continues to be debated and dissected today. Section 6. Building Dreams, Dressing Up, Victorian Aesthetics. The Victorian era was a time of great architectural diversity. Gothic revival, with its pointed arches and soaring spires, captured the romantic spirit of the age. Think the Houses of Parliament, a masterpiece of neo-Gothic grandeur. Meanwhile, industrial cities sprouted factories and warehouses built for function rather than beauty. Victorian fashion, too, was a reflection of the times. Women's clothing emphasized modesty and a tightly corseted silhouette. Think layers of fabric, bustles to accentuate the rear, and elaborate hats adorned with feathers and flowers. Men's fashion favored formality, with top hats, frock coats and waistcoats de rigueur for gentlemen. The Victorians loved to decorate. Their homes, often crammed with furniture and knickknacks, reflected a fascination with the exotic and the historical. Think heavy drapes, patterned wallpaper, and an abundance of decorative objects, from porcelain figurines to stuffed birds under glass domes. This era, with its eclectic mix of architectural styles and its penchant for elaborate decoration, left behind a visual legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire. Section 7. A taste of the times, food and entertainment. Victorian cuisine, much like the era itself, was a study in contrasts. For the wealthy, elaborate multi-course meals were the norm, showcasing exotic ingredients and culinary extravagance. Dinner parties were grand affairs, with strict rules of etiquette governing every aspect of the meal. The working classes, however, subsisted on a much simpler diet. Bread, potatoes, and other staple foods formed the backbone of their meals. Meat, if they could afford it, was often a luxury. Entertainment in the Victorian era ran the gamut, from simple pleasures to grand spectacles. Music halls, with their mix of music, comedy and variety acts, offered an escape from the rigors of daily life. The theatre too flourished, with Shakespearean dramas and melodramatic plays drawing large audiences. For those seeking more refined entertainment, opera houses offered a taste of high culture. The Victorians, despite their reputation for seriousness, also enjoyed their share of simple amusements. Picnics in the park, seaside holidays, and outings to the zoo provided welcome respite from the urban grind. Section 8. Eureka! Victorian science and social change. The Victorian era witnessed groundbreaking scientific discoveries that transformed our understanding of the world. Charles Darwin, with his theory of evolution by natural selection, challenged long-held beliefs about the origins of life. His work, controversial at the time, sparked fierce debates and laid the foundation for modern biology. In physics, James Clerk Maxwell's equations unified electricity, magnetism, and light, paving the way for the development of technologies like radio and television. The discovery of X-rays by Wilhelm Röntgen revolutionized medicine, providing a powerful new tool for diagnosis. The Victorian era was also a time of great social change. The Industrial Revolution, while bringing about economic progress, also created new social problems. Urban poverty, child labor, and the lack of sanitation in overcrowded cities became pressing concerns. Social reformers, driven by a sense of moral purpose, campaigned for better working conditions, improved sanitation, and greater social justice. Figures like Florence Nightingale, who revolutionized nursing, and William Wilberforce, who led the movement to abolish slavery, left an enduring legacy of compassion and social reform. Section 9. A legacy remembered. The Victorian impact. The Victorian era, though long gone, continues to cast a long shadow. Its legacy is visible in our architecture, our literature, our laws, and even our values. The Victorian emphasis on hard work, morality, and progress continues to shape our world today. The Victorian era, for all its complexities and contradictions, was a time of immense change and progress. It was an era that laid the groundwork for the modern world, shaping everything from our cities to our values. Section 10. Beyond the veil, the darker side. The Victorian era, often romanticized for its elegance and grandeur, also had a darker side. Poverty, disease, and crime were rampant in the overcrowded cities. The gap between the rich and the poor was vast, and social mobility was limited. The Victorian obsession with morality, while well-intentioned, often manifested as hypocrisy and repression. Sexuality was a taboo subject, and any deviation from social norms was met with harsh judgment. The Victorian era, for all its progress, was also a time of great social injustice. The exploitation of the working class, the subjugation of women, and the horrors of colonialism are a stark reminder of the darker side of this complex period. Section 11. Conclusion. Echoes of the era. The Victorian era, a time of extraordinary transformation, continues to fascinate and intrigue us today. It was an era of contradictions, of progress and poverty, innovation and inequality. Its legacy is complex and multifaceted, shaping the world we live in today. As we look back on this era, we are reminded that history is rarely simple or straightforward. The Victorian era, with all its triumphs and failures, serves as a reminder that every era has its own unique challenges and complexities.